All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, they've fixed their delay issues. It looks like everything is working over there. I see the chat is on. It's a pretty good indicator that things will be fine. We've got quite a bit of news to cover today. Of course, starting off with the Chinese spy balloon, literally at this moment, currently above Montana, in the middle of the night there. It's recording data and transmitting it back to Beijing. Biden admin doesn't seem to be too concerned about this. We'll be talking about that. And also a hot take, by the way. I noticed that no other commentator that I know of is pointing out the connection between that and the Pentagon-related increase in the FBI's floor space that they're asking for. Talked about that this morning. Let's reload this and make sure we're actually live. Yes, indeed we are. Lots and lots of clanks in chat. That's what I'd like to see. Balloons are apt considering the clown you've got in the White House, says Censored. Yeah, so we will be talking about the Chinese spy balloon. That is definitely the major story of the day. Knocking off Ilhan Omar, AOC's outburst, and various other things. It's a crazy news day. It's like Monday and Tuesday. There's not much to cover. Kind of boring. Now all of a sudden, everything comes at once. This is the bane of content creators that do like the live streaming news thing. you get 10 really juicy stories and you're like, shit, I got to prioritize, or you get nothing at all. It can't just be an even news cycle. Anyway, we'll start right off here. Pentagon tracking suspected Chinese spy balloon over the U.S. and Biden is currently taking his morning nap, so I'm sure he's not too concerned about this. Now, I did a Substack article, actually, only moments ago, like 15 minutes ago, and put that up. You can review that at your leisure as well. And that's long story short mode. It's only a few paragraphs long. I figured I've got to make a new Substack anyway, and this is primo shit. Right now, you have apparently a high-altitude balloon wandering around over Montana, which, by the way, happens to be where a disproportionate number of the U.S.'s nuclear facilities happen to be located. Biden says, well, they're not getting any meaningful data from it anyway. Just ignore it. We're not going to do anything. There's a risk of falling debris if we shoot it out of the sky. Can I please ask, under what normal circumstances does a nation not take any particular significant action when an enemy, or at least a competitor state, violates its airspace? Krasenstein there, I put this in the Substack article. It's mystifying the apples to oranges comparison that's being made for anything other than Biden butt covering. Was trying to compare it to spy satellites. And I'm thinking to myself, a satellite, of course, is in orbit. It's not violating your airspace. Your airspace doesn't go that high. A balloon is. This balloon is literally violating U.S. airspace. To be clear about the gravity of the situation, let me phrase this as carefully as I can. A balloon, which is for spying purposes, quasi-military in nature presumptively, over a significant area of nuclear missile silos, is currently being allowed to continue to transmit data back to its home country without any countermeasures being taken. That's how out to lunch, how goddamn fucking stupid the Biden stewardship really is. And it's happening right now. It is literally above Montana. If you're in Montana, you're out in Helena or something like that. This spy satellite is spying on you right now. And your government is not doing anything to stop it, despite the fact that it clearly can. It's in Montana. This is a largely rural area. If debris falls on someone's farm, recover it. Pay them a stipend. Say, I'm sorry that your barn got wrecked. You know, what's the barn worth? $400K? We'll give you $1 million just because this debris fell on it. You can absorb the cost. You're willing to send billions of dollars to Ukraine. You can't pay some fucking farmer out in the middle of Montana. Warn them ahead of time. Say the balloon's probably going to crash on your property. You might not want to go near it. We don't even know if this is weaponized, by the way. This could be loaded with explosives. They could have fire bombs on it. Maybe the whole goal is to firebomb something. Why would you conceive of otherwise? The United States has always acted in a proactive manner in past situations like this. Why is it different now? It's because Beijing Biden is controlled by China. That's really the reason why. And the Chinese came out and said, well, we're looking into it. You're looking into your spy hot air balloon that was launched recently. Okay, that makes it all better. Everything's perfectly fine. We have no idea why it's up there. We don't know exactly what it's canvassing, although it's an area that is important for military purposes, so we can probably infer that. I would think that having a spy balloon looking in on your nuclear sites would be a reason to go and make an example of it and shoot it down so that it doesn't happen again. Apparently, Biden didn't get the memo. Boycott Warhammer Plus. Good morning, Sticks. What's your stance on the AI videos? I have no problem with AI. If somebody made AI of me, by the way, I would find it hilarious, including AI porn. That would be, in my opinion, it'd be amusing more than anything else. Now, people are going to be able to tell. I mean, if you say, look, that's not me, it's AI. If you look into it, there is a way to tell the difference. It doesn't really sound like you. It doesn't really look like you. There are differentiations that occur. Steady Eddie, 1983. I'm going to sue you for sharing information in a laptop that doesn't belong to me. Genius crackhead, probably. Yes. Hunter Biden crazy enough to want to potentially have to take the witness stand in his own case, suing over the release of his dick pics, basically. Sebastian Monroe, civilians shoot down balloon as militia defending the homeland. Biden, FBI, investigate those terrorists for China, for America. Yeah, if a civilian were to send up a rocket right now and attack the balloon, probably they'd get in trouble for it. Your government is derelict. It is currently non-functioning. The executive has flown the coop, is demented, and is not doing his job. He is illegitimate for that reason. He needs to be removed from office by the 25th Amendment immediately. Cum Goblin. Splat. Scott McLachlan sent $5 without a comment. Thank you very much. Bill Crowell, hashtag shoot it down. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Send in an F-16, fire on it a little bit. You don't even need to blow it up in the air or something. All you have to do is fire on the balloon itself. It'll lose altitude. It'll slowly come down to the ground. Is that impossible for a U.S. pilot to achieve at this point? Zach Webster, Sticks, I've been watching you since I was 15. I am 20 years old now. Glad you are still part of my morning routine. Clank on. May there be many mornings in the future as well. Maxwell Schulz, please tell me you heard about the New Jersey Republican who was recently whacked in what the police called a targeted attack. Yes, but I'm waiting for more info on that before I report on it in a live stream. I have heard of that council member. FJ Amato, how do we know Trudeau wasn't involved with the balloon? Remember Chinese soldiers in Western Canada recently? Yeah, it's entirely possible. That could be why they're ignoring it. It would cause a diplomatic issue with the Canadians, maybe. Sticks X and Ham R 666. A Japanese Fugo bomb killed 5 kids and a woman in southern Oregon during World War II. Only deaths in the continental U.S. by attack during the war. Yes, the Japanese attempted and largely failed to firebomb the western coast of the United States. They used balloons that had incendiary devices mainly. It largely was a waste of time, although it was kind of a novel approach. They're taking advantage of weather patterns and shit. This is a little bit different because the inference is that this is to spy on people. It's not necessarily a military balloon in the sense of shooting on things, but we don't know that. It could have explosives on board. It could have some sort of new device that it intends to deploy over a nuclear field to disable nuclear weapons for all Biden knows, but he's not willing to take action. Drennan, Sticks, your money plant seems to be working. Don't believe me? Here's $5. Well, thank you for that. Green Glassful, Second City Bureaucrat is the best Substack writer ever. Long live the Bronze Age pervert. Yes, check it out. I've heard of him. Skate Betty, the Morning Clank is my favorite program. It's comfy, it's cool, it's clanky. F-bombs belong in the news, for fuck's sake. Thank you. Mr. Wonderful, Biden has no program using a drone on an Afghan, had no problem using a drone on an Afghan aid worker and 7 children, but is fine with a CCP military balloon floating across the U.S. Yes, imagine the out-to-lunch-ness of this particular situation. The United States routinely engages in military maneuvers in other countries, sometimes without any permission at all, but something's floating in our own goddamn airspace and they won't do anything about it. Tyler H4402, I heard speculation the balloon is only still up because they fear it would actually be a bioweapon. Well, then they should probably use incendiary devices on it. Bring it down, and while it's floating down, send in a helicopter, get it real close, and flamethrower that shit. I think it's because you would find that it's not just the Chinese that deployed him. I think that you would find that perhaps the United States Biden administration itself had a hand in it, or there was Canadian involvement, in which case you get a major diplomatic incident. Something like that. Shenanigans are definitely afoot. There is no question in my mind about that. Over on Rumble, Conservacuck says, clank. IDK, man, help. Wonder what would happen if civilians did shoot it down. Well, it's a high-altitude balloon, so your rifle is not going to be able to bring this down. Some really crafty civilian that develops, like, homemade rockets might be able to hit it, but you might miss, and then it might blow up somewhere else, so it's probably not advisable. Dildozer, freshly home, Missouri, from Poland. I'm a longtime viewer from back when you talked about Satanism. Good memories. Glad to see you found a niche. Oh, I still talk about occult topics. I made several occult videos recently. Hell Radio Lives. Montana should form a sharp stick brigade. Well, the Montana's government could, in theory, decide to activate the state guard. They might have the resources to bring down a high-altitude balloon. I'm not 100% sure. Mostly, it looks like it's probably looking into nuclear facilities, though. You'd think that would set off alarm bells. Biden is very nonchalant, and his administration is totally dismissive of it. Well, it's not going to gather them any information that they can't already gather. Number one, that's not the point. This is not a satellite that's up in orbit. It's violating our airspace in a military zone, by the way. Number two, you don't know that because you haven't investigated it. Did you get an assurance from the Chinese diplomat? Oh, don't worry, we deployed a spy satellite over the United States, but it's for literally no reason. It's not gathering any data that we don't already have. That sounds awfully, awfully strange to me. Merrick Grimaldus. We scramble jets for supposed UFOs. Yeah, exactly. Someone gets near our airspace, we normally scramble a jet. What the fuck is the Biden administration doing? This is highly abnormal, and when things are that abnormal, something is going on. Behind the scenes that you and I don't see, there's something terribly, terribly wrong with this particular scenario. He needs to be 25th. Him and everyone else associated with him needs to be removed immediately. Aaron Nelson, lol, when that balloon lands on live TV and has Biden documents in it. Yeah, it'd be funny. It makes its way to DC, and then it has like a note inside that says, fuck you or something. Hey, we can violate your airspace and you can't do anything about it because we control you. Jezebel B, good morning, Sticks. What are your thoughts on Trump campaigning with Lindsey Graham? Lindsey Graham is easily controlled by his betters. We've seen this before by Donald Trump, by Mitch McConnell, and also most famously by John McCain. He's an empty suit. He has no ideology of his own. Next news story, getting past the spy balloon. I mean, Christ, I could make a whole live stream just on that subject, but there is other stuff to talk about. We've got the GOP, had at GOP on Twitter. This is their literal official page. They decided to simp for George W. Bush. Speaking of World War III and warmongering in general and things of that nature, codename Trailblazer. And it has fucking George W. there in his cowboy hat looking like a Marlboro man. I'm thinking, yeah, Americana. Got them chili beans, lots of bacon, get that fat back on them big jowls, and then all that other star-spangled bullshit. And I'm thinking to myself, George W. is not somebody who you want to applaud. His code name should be fucking moron. To be clear, as a non-Republican, if there's one thing that rankles me about the Republican Party more than anything else, it's the fact that they stubbornly cling to praising like the Bush family and the McCains of the world. You've been handed populism. You've been handed actual victories, like ideological ones, not just simply winning an election and then wandering off into the sunset. What did George W. ever give to this nation? Carpetbagging FEMA right before Hurricane Katrina, ring a bell? How about that war on terror? How well that went? What about No Child Left Behind? What about the so-called Patriot Act, the unpatriotic act, the shit of our modern times? Why the hell are you praising George W.? You should ignore his existence. You should have put up a Trump picture. I guess that'd be too spicy for the GOP. So you know what? Fuck the Republican Party. There are a handful of people in the party that actually make sense or trying to do their jobs. People like Trump, people like Rand Paul, even sometimes Ted Cruz mysteriously. Hell, fucking Marco Rubio would be a much better president than George W. ever was. Stop applauding the warmongers. How tone deaf can you be? You think that the average Republican at this point, let alone people like myself who are independents who are siding with you out of convenience because the Democrats are 10 times worse, even the average partisan Republican didn't like Dubya towards the end. What the fuck are you even thinking? Just another example of their great Republican Party stratagems. Great strategizers, those Republicans. Dude, the Democrats run rings around you for a reason. And when people like myself try to correct you, then all of a sudden we're commies or something like that. How dare you insinuate that George W. wasn't a patriot who loved America first? No, he wasn't. He's a Connecticut blue blood pretending to be a rancher. He's a very shrewd businessman pretending to be a fucking moron in order to escape justice. He should have been removed from office. And not just because of the Katrina response, by the way. Called for it at the time, still believe in it. Trevor Coyle, KC-135 refuelers are circling Montana. Stealth fighters have been in the sky as well. And you don't need to spy on our nuclear field. Everything can be found on Google. Well, not really. You can get a lot closer with the hot air balloon than with a satellite, depending on weather especially. And it's violating our airspace. It doesn't matter what intel it can gather. It should be shot down. It's technically a quasi-military apparatus floating through our airspace. It's not in orbit. It's floating around on wind currents and shit. Just fire on it. Blow it up. Ozzy's robots. Balloon flying Biden admin. Cue up Benny Hill music. Yeah. Somebody make a video where it's Joe Biden in a jetpack floating through the air after a Chinese spy balloon. That would be that'd be a funny one. Sparky, who needs a spy balloon when the U.S. is chock full of female Chinese spies? They're fully integrated into the workforce. Yeah, the insurgency is complete, I suppose. We're too busy spying on Twitter users, I suppose. The Spence Fencer. Biden promised his first 100 days as POTUS to non-Americans. He hasn't been president for Americans since. How could anyone have voted for this joke? Yeah, believe it or not, some of those votes were non-honked. Yeah, there were people that actually voted for him because Orange Man bad. Darun Albane, $5 for the kitties. OnlyFans. One butthole, please. Yeah, the cat actually now has her chair next to me. Funny story. Yana decided to piss in my chair. So naturally, the cover had to be cleaned. She does this routinely. She randomly pisses on foreign objects as a show of force, I think. She's territorial. So I put the other chair that, I had to clean the cover to the side here. She's loving it, and she hasn't peed on anything since, so I'm just going to leave it there and see if that solves the problem. She's got her own cat throne. She's made her point. Scarfy the Strange. Remember, Montana, the best way to say hello to a spy balloon is a Winnie the Pooh image on the front lawn. Yeah, put some shit out, it might be using radio signals or something like that. People, amateur, like shortwave operators can maybe try to scramble it or something. You can try it. You may or may not be successful. Ben Dover, no to neocons. Exactly. If the GOP goes back to being the W party, fuck them. I'll drop them like a hot potato. Brian Zwart, did you hear about the animal rights activist that stood in for the ducks at a duck slaughtering farm and someone decided to press the button? I don't know if that's a true story or not, or if you're making a joke. That'd be funny if they did. Next news story. Breaking, 86 House Democrats vote against a resolution to denounce the horrors of socialism. An additional 14 voted present. Yes, almost a 50-50 cut of the U.S. Democratic Party has its head so far up its ass, and this is not good optics for them, by the way, that they decided to vote against a bill that simply denounces socialistic genocide. That's basically what it is about. Denouncing socialism on agreeing to the resolution. All the Republicans voted yes. Most of the Democrats voted yes. But then you have the progressive caucus, so-called, and some present votes. I mean, what's the fucking point of voting present? That's basically the same as a no vote. You're basically just being a pussy. There are actually Democrats that did not want to denounce socialism. And I'm thinking to myself, if this vote were on national socialism, so not just socialism more broadly, but specifically national socialism, would a single person have voted no or present? Of course not. They would have unanimously, it would have been a unanimous resolution to denounce National Socialism. Maybe we would have gotten a couple of holdouts. It'd be funny if there were Republicans, by the way, at that point. I'm sure that's the stereotype the Dems want to portray. The fact is that this isn't even just the Republicans trying to ferret out the leftoids or anything like that. This is a meaningful resolution. It's a House resolution, technically quasi-diplomatic in nature, showing, hey, we oppose the concept of slaughtering large numbers of people for socioeconomic purposes. If it was a resolution on Nazism, it would be unanimous. If it was a reference to communism, it would probably be at least near unanimous. You know, Ilhan Omar might not vote in favor. AOC might not. The Geek Squad would probably vote present, but everyone else pretty much would vote in favor of the resolution. It's interesting how far you've devolved when you are actually refusing to condemn a system that has led to the deaths of hundreds of millions of people over the last century. By the way, there were plenty of terrorist attacks by socialists in the early 20th century in the United States. The bomb-throwing anarchist period prior to FDR, actually. We're talking the 1910s, 20s, and 30s mainly for that. It was a period of turmoil, of upheaval in the United States. For some reason, I guess these people, I mean, clearly they've never cracked open a history book, not even a woke one. Latvarian savage. Confirmed second balloon over Canada, and we would declare war over a cyber attack, but not our airspace being violated. 25th this clown before 9/11 2.0 happens. Yeah, apparently I'm getting word that there is a second balloon that the Chinese have launched. How wonderful. Will the Canadians act? Oh, fuck no. Justin Trudeau loves the idea. He's such a masochist, man. He loves the idea of his airspace being violated. He just wishes the Chinese would violate something else. That's all that dude wants. Fuck me harder, Daddy Beijing. Sebastian Monroe, duck activist story is from 2019. Vid available. Oh, God, it's true. I'll have to look that one up later. Thank you for my nightly viewing pleasure. Viridian G, Sticks, we got your back. Clank in Korean. Thank you. If I have to flee to Korea, don't worry, I can survive on kimchi. It's pretty fucking good. Ozzy's Robots, Chinese spy balloons, brought to you by Pfizer. E100 Omega 123, Sticks, that wasn't real socialism, though. Exactly, that's the excuse that they use. Every other socialist regime falls under one of two umbrellas because they've all failed. It was subverted by the CIA and evil Western imperialists, who many of themselves are socialist, as you see from this vote, or it collapsed because it wasn't true socialism. They didn't do it right that time. Well, how many fucking tries does it take? If it's such a great system, you'd think you could incept it at some point. Hell, libertarianism can claim that for the first half century of the United States, libertarianism, in its soft form at least, was functionally what we were using. It can point to a period of success, a period of great growth, actually, and a massive technological change. Socialism can't do that. That's because it fucking sucks. Shlomo Goldenstein, advice for starting a write-in mayoral campaign. Just get word out there any way that you can. Put up billets. If it's legal, of course. Might want to get some stickers going. Get people interested and be exciting. Be the brown milk, as Chris Whalen, CPA, would say. By the way, his book is available on Amazon. It is a good read. I've got a copy of it, signed, I believe, actually, by him. Be unique. Stand out in some way. Get the attention, and then you roll the attention over into being able to tell your message. That's the way to do politics. Look at what Trump did. Drew and Albane, Fallout 4 has solved the border issue. Turrets are cool. Tyler H, 4402, time to call in 4chan. Yeah, 4chan has a better chance of tackling the balloon issue than the Biden administration. Not that that's abnormal. 4chan tends to be pretty fucking with it, but the Biden administration is so goddamn derelict. They don't care about a spy balloon over your nuclear sites. Does this make you feel safe? Does it make the Biden voters feel like they made the right choice, or does it make them feel like a piece of pile of shit? Scott McLaughlin, any news on the Memphis attack being because of a girlfriend of a cop and the black man getting it on? I have no updates on that particular claim. I have seen it claimed, though. The Crypto Dead. Thanks for the daily dose of sanity, Sticks. Shout out for my crypto channel, The Crypto Dead. Clank. Roscoe P. Coltrane, Pfizer carditis. I'm allowed to say that outside of context, of course. Next news story, Black reparations inspiring a multicolored Pandora's box of intersectional demands. Now, I'm not going to get into the article because it's a bunch of horseshit. Reparations are horseshit. IDPOL is horseshit. Fucking go about your life. Be an individual. Stop looking at your skin color all of the goddamn time and claiming some sort of supremacy or grievance. That's what I would say as a clanker. There are black clankers. There are Mexican clankers. There are Irish clankers. There are clankers probably from Sumatra. There might even be a person in the Maldives who clanks their spoon in the morning to coffee, listening to me probably at their middle of the night. That's all good. I don't give a fuck. I'm an equal opportunity hater of society, and I equally don't care about what other people do in their personal lives unless it affects me. Just look at the title, though. The only reason I even included it is for the title. Black reparations inspiring a multicolored Pandora's box of intersectional demands. What the fuck does that even mean? Well, intersectionality, all of these bizarre words, these buzz terms that are being dreamed up by the woke crowd are just, they're starting to get difficult to navigate. It's sort of like when you look at the acronym with regards to gender identity. At first it was lesbian, gay, bisexual. Then they added transgender. Then they added asexual. Then they added like the queer questioning, the Q in there. It keeps getting longer. Now it's with a plus sign usually, sometimes MAP, 1, 2, 3, IOU, ABC. The acronym keeps getting so long, I mean, eventually you won't even be able to make a tweet about it because it'll be too fucking long for the character limit. It's the same thing with the BIPOC, which is the same thing as saying colored people. I've pointed out that this is actually bigoted, but they refuse to acknowledge this. It's getting more and more and more convoluted. When people unnecessarily convolute language, a lot of hyphenation, a lot of seemingly empty words with vacuous or easily malleable meanings, hush, hush, that's a good sign that you're being propagandized to. It's a concept within linguistic anthropology, by the way. Thus, requiring language creoles that, oddly enough, simplify things instead of simply getting around censorship. Come Goblin, I went skiing last night and listened to Depeche Mode. It was fun. Yeah, I think their new single drops later today, actually, or tomorrow. I'm going to be listening to that really quick. Jared Pierce, equality only feels like oppression to those with equity. Interesting. The Chronicles of Chris, Isra Clanker from Israel here. Just finished my cup. Clank! Captain Cannabis, morning sticks. It's always nice having your stream to listen to in the morning. Some people aren't lucky enough to catch you live. Shout out to Alex. Yeah, Alex has become a meme on the channel, along with Clanking, 10.2, the cat's asshole, and a few other things. Isn't this the greatest goddamn timeline of all? Yeah, the world's going to hell, but we've got dank memes. It's all good. Could be worse, you know. By the way, once again, a shit ton of people watching on Rumble. Bleach Demon, if a hillbilly shot down the Chicom balloon, who would be more mad, the Winnie the Pooh or the State Department? Rufus Rapscallion does not have the firepower to hit a high-altitude balloon. This is floating quite a distance above ground. It is still violating our airspace, though. There are methods by which it can be shot down. There are methods by which it could be brought down slowly, maybe without blowing it up, so that we can investigate it and see exactly what it's doing and why. Biden doesn't seem to care about this issue. Maybe they're waiting until it's over a different state. They're worried that the debris will fall on Rufus Rapscallion and Montana will stop being only a lean red state and go hard red or something. Maybe it's for political reasons. I don't know. Ozzy's Robots, reparations are 2024's bribe to mobilize minorities. Yeah, just like the yesteryear, it was student loan debt forgiveness. Well, that's not gone through, so they have to switch tactics. Red Muskrat, I'll never understand why we have McConnell and Paul in the same state. I apologize on behalf of Kentucky. You get a pass for giving us Rand Paul. That makes up for Mitch McConnell, because McConnell's an old man. I mean, eventually he'll croak, thankfully. He'll go to hell. Scarfy the Strange, if you are still on Pixel Planet, might I request a recreation of Winnie doing his rain cloud routine? You'll know where to put it. Yeah, that'd be funny. I still sporadically use Pixel Planet. Not actively as much anymore. I am still faction leader of the largest faction on the platform, just to be clear. And no, oh Lord, a 50 cal would not reach a balloon at that height. Not even by a long shot. You'd need a missile or something like that. Uncle Gib on Rumble. We've had U-2s and satellites for decades, and I'm assuming countries like China and Russia have similar tools to use. So why would China use a balloon? That makes no sense. I'm not buying it. I'll tell you why. To be visible. to show up the Biden regime. You want people to know that it's there, violating the airspace, because you know that Biden won't do jack shit about it. It's to prove that the U.S. stewardship of Joe Biden is inept. Otherwise, you would just use a spy satellite. There's no reason to float a fucking hot air balloon over there. Can it even move on its own, or is it just following wind currents? Probably the latter. It's the size of 3 school buses, by the way. This is not a small object. People are seeing it up in the sky and taking pictures of it. It's very visible for a reason. Normally, when you're spying on someone, you don't want to be detected doing so. So you put up a satellite. It's for various purposes, but it's secretly recording and transmitting data. But what if you want somebody to know, hey, we can spy on you, violate your airspace, and your own government won't do jack fucking shit? Yay! You've just proven your point, and you've done it for a very low cost. It's a fucking balloon. That's the whole point of this. They're showing up the Biden admin, showing how weak, impotent, and retarded that he really is. Toasty, they say we are worried about the taking the balloon down over Montana because of people. They didn't bother with it when it was nowhere near Alaska either. Yeah, it could be over the Rocky Mountains, 100 miles from the nearest goddamn gulch that has a single life form in it, and they still wouldn't shoot it down. And the Chinese apparently know this. Hell Radio lives, Sticks. I'm meeting Donald soon. What would be important to bring up to him? Make sure that he knows of me, of course. No, I'm just joking. I mean, you can throw in a good word for me if you want to. Hey, maybe you should take this YouTuber's advice. You know, you did retweet him at one point back in the day. Make sure to bring up the idea of the grand pivot. The grand pivot elevator pitch is this. Start casting your enemies off as the ones concerned with the past, and you as the one concerned with the future. Pivot entirely away from the last election, ignore it, and vocalize that very clearly. That's all you have to do. It would blindside the Democrats if he did that. My opponents would love to talk about what happened on January 6th. I think it's more important to talk about what'll happen on the next January 6th. I'm looking forward to the future. They're stuck in the past. They're relics. They're fossilized. I represent the future. Fucking vote for me. Basically, in a nutshell. Apache, would a drone with a knife on it work? Maybe. Depends on what the outside of the hot air balloon is actually made of. It's presumably made of tough material. It may be hard to penetrate it. A missile would work. You could cut the cords, maybe. They could probably, send a blimp up or something like that. Have some dude crawl out and go and hook it, pull it in or some shit. Americans used to jerry-rig everything under the sun in inventive ways in order to deal with enemy situations they couldn't quite predict. Now, apparently, everything is too bureaucratic. Next news story. National Archives wasn't allowed to reveal Biden classified documents discovery. This is a brief one here. A top House Republican says the top lawyer for the National Archives wasn't allowed to weigh in on the discovery of classified documents in President Joe Biden's possession, despite publicly commenting repeatedly on former President Donald Trump's similar circumstance. I would like to say it's not similar. Donald Trump had his documents in a secure location after declassifying them. Biden has his in an unsecured location while not having declassified them, or at least there's been no claim that he did so. Trump claims he did. Effectively, as the former commander-in-chief, he could probably do that legally. VP can't, and he's making no claim of that capability or the fact that he did. There is therefore a difference in the other direction. I find it very, very funny that the National Archives can't talk about the Biden case. Oh, you're not allowed to criticize your current boss. You're only allowed to dogpile Orange Man bad. Who could have seen that one fucking coming? Yeah, it'd be funny if the Chinese spy balloon actually had a capsule on it with a bioweapon or something. And then they realize they can't fire on it because then it'll deploy the bioweapon or something. That would explain it. Boy, oh boy, wouldn't that be funny? Then it lands anyway. It deploys it right in D.C. Yeah, you probably could. If you got up close enough to it, you probably could use a laser to just burn a hole in the side of the hot air balloon, and then it would, descend to the ground at some point. Once it's down low enough, you could capture it. You could have some sort of net or something like that. Sparky, is it hot air or helium? I believe this one is a helium balloon. Scarfy the Strange, how high can a laser reach? Just asking for a friend. It depends on how powerful the laser is and what color it is, I think, for some reason. I don't know 100% about that one. Hillary Clinton, do you have any interesting material that could make an occult video on blacksmithing? No, I don't think so. Although I do know that forge water is used in a handful of 18th century spells. In fact, I believe it's mentioned in the Petit Albert, if I remember correctly. Forge water, that is water that iron has been quenched in. I believe so. I believe that's the Petit Albert, if I remember correctly. It could have been one of the other grimoires contemporary to the period. Fascinating subject, by the way. Thank you. Next news story. Here's a temper tantrum inducer. House votes to remove Ilhan Omar from Foreign Affairs Committee. Boo-hoo-hoo. And she goes wild over this. Rashida Tlaib will talk separately about AOC's reaction to this and other things the GOP is doing. Number one, let's admit up front a couple of things. It is absolutely punitive. That is, the GOP is punishing her for being a leftoid, although I have no problem with that. Secondly, it's punishing her for some of her comments, specifically regarding the Israelis and things related to it. Like, I can't remember the exact quote. It was something about the Benjamins, and there was an insinuation of like Jewish bankers or something. I don't care about policing people's statements of that nature, whether they're farce or jokes or whether they're meant to be taken seriously. I really don't care about those views that people have. It has nothing to do with being on this particular committee per se. But Ilhan Omar is a leftoid. She's one of the people I believe that voted against denouncing socialism. She's not fit to even be in Congress. She should never have been in Congress. She effectively was jury-rigged in there by the Justice Dems, primarying out a neoliberal who hadn't had to run for some time from the far left. She's effectively a step from communism. She shouldn't be on a committee. The reason they removed her is bullshit. It is punitive. It is because, oh my God, you criticized Israeli state policy. But the end result is still good. It's sort of like if you have bad intentions, but you do something good anyway. Like, let's say you get pissed off at somebody in a bar and you decide to kill them. Now, this is an extreme example, but just go with me. Just because they were an asshole. Then you find out that that asshole was wanted for 5 murders and was a fugitive from justice. Well, you murdered him. You didn't have a good reason in mind why you murdered him. You're the asshole, really, because you just decided that the dude got drunk, he belched too loud, and you decided to slit his throat. But you just killed somebody who was on the run and could have killed a dozen kids or something the next day. So the end result is good. You just killed the potential mass murderer. Nothing wrong with that. But your reasoning behind it wasn't necessarily the best. That's basically my thoughts on the Ilhan Omar debacle here. And it was funny because she was actually trending the other day. Eric writes, sorry for the trollery yesterday. In my view, if AOC wants to do weird stuff, banning traditional farming, absent animal abuse, she should have to pay a price. That's all. Wishing you and your family well. Thank you for that. Pokey Slasher, $2. No comment, thank you. Darun Albane, Freedom Tunes did a funny Socialism Works video titled A Brief History of Socialism. Yeah, the brief history of socialism, that applies to every socialistic regime because it tends to only briefly exist before it collapses. Psychophantic, we do have a knife missile made specifically for taking out targets with minimal collateral in high-density areas. Okay, just bring one of those in. You'll have to tell Joe that those exist, though. I'm sure that he's ignorant of the topic, along with every other topic. Scarfy the Strange, socialism is the subscription model of government. Sexist SpaghettiOs. Morning Sticks got suspended from Twitter for posting a spicy meme. New boss, same as the old, with some slight variance. Clank on, brother, take my monies for being awesome with mostly daily content. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that they do need to ease back up on Twitter. Things were better there for a few weeks, and then they kind of got worse. They're still, like, Blonde in the Belly of the Beast is back on Twitter. She's gotten unbanned. They've gotten Malnu back on, Dawson, all the others. The unbanning side of it's going fairly well. The application of rules and continuing to be more of a liberty platform thing is more dicey, unfortunately. We'll see what happens in the near future. Eric writes, socialism does indeed work. It just doesn't scale beyond about 300 people. Yeah, unless it's religiously inspired. You can have a sort of a communal or quasi-communal culture if you're like the Amish. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Next news story. By the way, please send no more super chats. We're getting up on 40 minutes here, and I will keep it a little short because I'm celebrating Black History today with the meal that I'm going to cook later. I'll leave it up to you to figure out what I'm cooking. Ocasio-Cortez explodes over vote to boot Omar, slaps notebook against podium, targeting women of color. AOC claimed that the ousting of Omar was an extension of America's targeting of Muslim Americans after 9/11. No, it's just politically punitive. By the way, if you go down that article, links in the description to everything that I'm talking about right now, mostly archived, including this. There's a GIF image of her, and she was literally like this. She looked like, what's his name there? The irrelevant dude from Beto O'Rourke. You know, remember how he would do almost like the televangelist thing? And he'd be up on stage, basically like that. He'd be up on stage ranting and howling, oh, hell no, we're not going to build more wall. We need to get rid of the wall that's already there. And it looked like he was having like a religious experience or something. He was in a rod of ecstasy. AOC basically looks the same here. And this was very carefully pre-planned. It's the yes, Kitty, very pre-planned, yes. Very spicy. I'm saucy and spicy, and you boys won't get away with this. How dare you? It's sort of like a Greta Thunberg thing. At least Greta Thunberg hasn't studied elocution yet. Can you goddamn imagine she'd shit her diaper at some point? Let's see. Pokeslasher, thank you, Sticks, from this Kentucky Fried Clanker. Yes, actually, I am making fried chicken tonight. Just to be clear. Reference alone. Scarfy the Strange, listen to Jonestown tapes to see how well small-scale socialism works. Yeah, I've heard the Jonestown tapes. The final part of that's kind of eerie because people are literally dying in the recording. It's not exactly light and fluffy, but I listened to it back in the day along with Marshall Applewhite's cult tapes while I was high as balls on pot, like the first few times I was smoking it. I couldn't stop laughing at the time. Then you sober up and you're like, oh, that is kind of sad when you think about it. And what it was, 800 people or something killed themselves. I killed Fritz for cat food. That's why you killed Fritz? Oh my God. You're crazy. Xyle000, the balloon is to increase the Chinese weather manipulation system. In 20, they increased the manipulation area to be larger than India, gray zone warfare. I don't believe in that, although it is possible to change the weather. We seed clouds regularly, etc. I don't think that's what this is for, but when you have, apparently now there's 2 balloons up, don't you think they could be triangulating something? You know, location data or something? Don't you think the fact that one of them is above your nuclear silos is a little bit strange? Violating your airspace? And the Biden admin doesn't do anything other than recall the diplomat to talk to him? And this isn't, I'm not supposed to consider this abnormal, basically. If this had happened under the W administration, we'd be on the edge of a nuclear war right now. If it had happened under Obama, at the very least, you'd have him live on TV right now explaining things to people, because he loved to do that. Under Trump, it already would have been blown out of the fucking sky. Under Biden, nothing. They say, yeah, there's a spy balloon up there. Don't worry about it too much. It's not getting any good data. Yeah, we're just going to ignore it. Let it pass on its good way. It's fine. Everything is fine. Yes, HARP is indeed real. The limitations of man to manipulate the weather, except through geoengineering and cloud seeding, a little bit different, just to be clear. And now the last news story from the New York Times, no less. Israel's right-wing government pushes home demolitions as violence surges. Israel defends its policy of leveling the family homes of Palestinians accused of attacks on its citizens as a deterrent. Critics say it is illegal and ineffective. Now, I've pointed this out before. My view of Israel v. Palestine is basically that struggle will remain forever because of the location there. And so I don't think the United States needs to necessarily be particularly involved in propping up one side or the other. Humanitarian aid to Palestine usually is embezzled by Hamas. Aid to Israel, often not earmarked for military purposes, is usually used for military purposes. The whole area is fucked. I hate to tell people this, but there's really nothing that can be done to take care of the problems that are endemic in this region in the world. It's been a problem for thousands of years. If the Romans couldn't solve it back then, we're not going to be able to solve it now. We have to project force across the Atlantic. The Romans were right in that same backyard. That being said, I like the titling here. Israel's right-wing government is the ones doing this. If it weren't right-wing, they wouldn't be demolishing the homes. But they've been doing that anyway all along. It's been going on for a very long time. The definition of right wing, I suppose, predominantly has to do only with traditionalism or nationalism, according to this article, by the way, because if you look at Israeli economic policy, there are left wing facets there. Maybe not on the same order as Europe, but it's not exactly a laissez-faire economy now, is it? Elements of society are highly bureaucratized. Actually, there was an article, I remember it from 6 or 7 years ago. Israel is having real price surges. And Israelis were actually going to Germany, and they were talking about how much cheaper Germany is. Germany's cheaper than your home country? Holy goddamn shit. I was in Germany. I was surprised at how pricey the cheese was, by the way. It was good, but, you know, fucking 14 euros for a wedge of cheese is a little bit on the pricey size unless it's really, really artisanal. And it was, you know, good, but it's basically a standard cheese. One of them had a little bit of crunch to it, though, and it was goddamn delicious. Me and Liz ate our way through that in a couple of days. It's not just the right-wing government doing this. Now, I do condemn the settlement system, because what happens is that they destroy these homes and then they build homes and put Jewish people in them. This does violate the peace accords that had been put in place there in, 67 or thereabouts. It definitely does violate them. That being said, the area is going to remain as it is. Diplomacy is not going to prevail. There's not much that anyone else can do about it. The only thing the United States could do to take care of the situation would be to annex Israel and Palestine and turn it into a state or something like that. Or some other party comes in and literally annexes or occupies the region, dissolving the current governments. You can't do that, though, because Israel has nuclear weapons. Thank you for taking our nuclear triggers back at the beginning of the 1980s, by the way, Netanyahu regime. Mega Sea Monkey, good morning, Sticks. My dad and I talked about politics. I am glad to say that we both agree that socialism is detrimental for a healthy society. That means that you're both sane. Congratulations. Ozzy's Robots, China has tons of blackmail material on H. Biden. Yes, of course, and on his daddy. Sewer turd, balloon equals bio device. No, it most likely is just a spying apparatus. Bringing about the question, if it's in your airspace, it's not from your own nation, why hasn't it been destroyed? Victoria Winter, please buy something cute for your little angel Sticks girl. Yes, indeed, she has many, many cute things. Piles of toys, various clothes, a lot of them flower-related or cat-related, by the way, which probably doesn't come as a surprise to any of you. JL, maybe the balloon is a manned vehicle, hence the hesitation to shoot it down. What that doesn't mean, no alternative corrective action should be taken. I doubt that the Chinese would put up an unsteered manned device into the upper atmosphere because you don't know where the balloon's going to go. And the person would eventually starve to death at 15,000 feet or whatever it's at. Gary Thomas. Hey, Sticks, do you think World War III will actually happen? I know people are talking about war breaking out with China over Taiwan. Unfortunately, eventually World War III will happen. It's a matter of time. Will it happen in the intermediate stage? No, I do not believe that it's imminent at this time. It will eventually occur, though. Big enough disaster and all the automated nuclear systems in the world maybe go off anyway on their own, so it can be a big problem. So yeah, there's my belief about the Israeli and Palestinian situation. The Israelis are imperializing their neighbor under a partition plan that was clearly set out. That much is clear. They're condemned all the time by this, and basically U.S. neocons are the only group in the world other than the Israeli government that supports the measure. But there's nothing we can really do about it. Even if you had universal condemnation, would the area get more peaceful? With or without any foreign involvement, the area will always devolve into a cesspit of fighting because mainly its location. Its location happens to be just perfect to be right at the crossroads of 3 continents. No shit, a lot of people want to conquer them all the time. I support the Israelis' right to have a nation. I do not support, by the way, this is to Chris there, who donated earlier. I do not support the right of the Israeli government to go into areas that it has already effectively ceded and begin building things where there are already homes and businesses, etc. Can't support it. It's a form of imperialism. Doesn't matter if it's punitive. Hey, this person attacked our nation. Okay, understood. You're demolishing homes in some cases absent any form of trial. That becomes a problem to me as a libertarian. Ozzy's Robots, imagine drafting today's soy boys and girls. Good God. There's plenty of good manpower in the United States and Europe still. It's just that there are more and more examples per capita of people that are not. Virgil Walker, Sticks, I'm in the process of getting my broker license. I've learned that debt market is about 3 times the size of the stock market. I know our economy was overburdened with debt, but it's still insane to see. That's news to me. Red Muskrat, random. Have you heard of the Highgate Cemetery Highgate vampire? I'm fascinated by that story. The term rings a bell, but I couldn't off the top of my head say anything about it. Yes, to the Chronicles of Chris, I can see you on YouTube. Just to be clear, since you're an Israeli, I'll just explain it to you directly. I support the Israelis' right to have a country. I have no problem with that. Unfortunately, you are invading effectively neighboring territory under a partition deal that was already brokered long ago and agreed to. It has been violated by the Palestinian Authority too, but I don't see Palestinians bulldozing Israeli homes and saying, well, yeah, West Jerusalem now is Palestinian, we can move in here. Unfortunately, because both sides refuse to actually conduct diplomacy, you're going to see continued fighting. It means there will be more dead Jews, more dead Palestinians, more grieving mothers, blood everywhere, a bunch of explosions, priceless historical relics, by the way, damaged and destroyed, and people will continue to be fucking miserable. You can blame your government and the Palestinian Authority for perpetuating that bullshit. And I don't believe that the United States should be sending military aid to Israel because it violates our own laws, by the way. We have explicitly in the United States a prohibition in giving military aid to any country that has nuclear systems but didn't sign the NPT. There are 2 of them in the world today, North Korea and Israel. That's not necessarily a club that Israel should, grin about being in, considering the only other party that's in that particular category. Sticks, shaking my head. Elucidation station over on Rumble. Ukraine has a stronger military than any nation in Europe. Europe has a pathetic military. Someone is lying to you somewhere, dog. You might want to research what Poland's got, how many shots in the locker they've got. Yeah, Ukraine definitely has a powerful military right now because it's been given shit by every other country in Europe and by the United States. Prior to that, now I think that Poland would beat the shit out of Ukraine in a one-on-one fight, just to be clear. It's funny, Poland is going to be the new rising military power. Gary Thomas, do you think globalist organizations like NATO, the UN, and the EU will ever come to an end? Personally, I hope so. Yeah, I do think so. I think there's going to be a great reversion. Unfortunately, in the process of that reversion, you'll probably have a shit ton of death. It's going to be really difficult to reverse track on our march towards international tyranny. And they're going to deliberately make it as messy as possible, by the way, when that transference begins. Anyway, it's about time to go offline here because I've got to do other stuff. Again, I've got to make fried chicken. I am going to try to double batter it tonight. That is when you, first you dry the wet, so you roll it in the flour with the herbs and shit. Then you put it in the batter, and then you roll it in panko. After you let it rest for a little bit and stabilize, then you put it in batter again and then more panko, and you can make it like double crispy or something. I've got extra fillets because Liz's grandparents actually were supposed to show up today, and so I got extra chicken to fry. And their houseboat had a problem, so they couldn't show up. And so I've got extra fillets, and so I figure if I experiment and I fuck up, which is not unreasonable to suggest I might, then I can just do it the normal way that I already know how with the other fillets, and all's good. And then I just waste a couple of chicken fillets. So I'll see what happens. I will attempt, and yes, they will be with buttermilk. I will use panko for extra crispiness. Lots of secret herbs and spices, of course. Al Qaeda, Brandon Simps for Bing Bing, wow, whoo. And yeah, so I'm going to go offline now and look into getting stuff for tomorrow when I'm going to be making Greek pasta, which, by the way, I make like a fucking boss. The secret is caraway. Virgil Walker, I think Poland can be our greatest European ally. Yeah, the Polish are pretty based. Can't wait to see Poland someday. That would be fucking cool. That's about all. Peace out.